Crime Curious is a true crime podcast that takes an in-depth look into real cases through the lens of a trained investigator and former prosecutor turned judge.
If you are sensitive to expletives, anatomical descriptions, and accurate descriptions of crime scenes, this podcast may not be suitable for you.
Hey Crime Curious crew, we wanted to tell you how you can fuel your soul with every sip from Pretty Bomb Coffee, one of our small business sponsors that we have fallen in love with. Welcome to a coffee experience born of service, heart, and bold Pacific Northwest flavor. This veteran-owned, woman-run, and faith-based small business comes with a mission: craft clean, delicious energy for life's everyday moments. After 22 years in the Air Force, one of the founders of Pretty Bomb Coffee brought his devotion home, where he supports his wife's dream to serve up more than just coffee. They serve purpose. The beans are roasted in small batches by a family-owned roaster in Washington State, blended exclusively for Pretty Bomb Coffee to deliver rich, bold flavor with smooth character in every brew. Every cup tells a story. They skip the artificial stuff and they keep it real with plant-based, dye-free ingredients, whether it's a velvety espresso or vibrant, all-natural energy drinks. You'll taste the difference and feel it too. You can choose your grind: drip, espresso, French press, or whole bean. Available in 12-ounce and 16-ounce bags, shipped straight to your doorstep. Or you can stop by one of their 2 locations in Gaffney, South Carolina, where the coffee's hot and the welcome's even warmer. Because coffee should do more than wake you up, it should make you feel good. So visit prettybombcoffee.com for their online shop and physical locations and use code BOMB10 for 10% off your first order. That's www.prettybombcoffee.com and use code BOMB10 for 10% off your first order. Welcome to Crime Curious. I'm Charnell.
I'm Megan.
And I'm Rain Beth Jason.
Hey gang, ready to shake some gree-gree to get this party started? Ugh, and I'm sorry I use the word party loosely. This is not my idea of a party. I mean, hanging out with you guys is.
I think it is. This is what you do to us on a regular basis.
I know. The case today is absolutely terrible, and it was recommended by our beautiful dear friend, Davita.
Oh.
And it is, Jason knows Davita.
She's lovely.
As well. She is lovely, and she actually said, like, this case is crazy. She lives on the other side of the state from us, Jason. So it is a Michigan case, but it's not close to us. Anything.
It's not really local for us.
It is not. It is not a local case. It's just a Michigan case for us.
Local to where I went to college.
But she knows a lot of the perpetrators in this case. She went to school with them.
I feel
she was like, this is crazy.
What year was this?
Well, this is going to be a span of many years, my friend.
Okay.
This is a span of many years. And let me just jump right into it, shall we? April 26th, 1998, around 2:30 a.m., a 911 dispatcher answers a call claiming that a woman had been hit on the Blue Star Highway in Covert Township, just outside of South Haven, Michigan.
So just so you're aware, that is literally like my junior year of college when I lived approximately 30 minutes from there.
Mm-hmm. Yep, this is located in kind of southwest Michigan. First responders find the woman almost on the center line of the roadway. She was pleading with the EMTs, "Please don't let me die." And there was a large amount of blood around her head. Her jacket was ripped, and it appeared that she had been hit by a vehicle. Her name was Deborah Boothby, and this is her story today. Deborah was rushed to the South Haven emergency room. However, her injuries were too much for her body to sustain, and she did not survive the transport and was pronounced dead around 3:15 a.m. on her way to South Haven ER. Tasha Hickman, Deborah's adult daughter, who is an adult now, was not an adult at the time, was made aware in the morning hours that her mother was gone and she was in a state of shock. She was informed that the death was ruled a hit-and-run accident, as Deborah's body showed obvious signs of vehicular trauma to her torso, and with her jacket ripped and the head trauma. On top of the fact that her blood alcohol level was immense, this led investigators to believe that Deborah had been intoxicated and left a nearby bar called the Blue Star Lounge on foot before being hit and left for dead. The covert police were looking for anyone to come forward who might have known what happened to Deborah that night, but Covert is a small town filled with many who don't trust the police and maybe many who just want to mind their own business. Tasha always knew that there were people out there who knew something and were not saying something. Tasha described her mother as a single mother just trying to get by. She was feisty, she didn't take crap from anyone, and she wasn't one to back down. She was tough but also loving and caring. Deborah had lived in the small town of Covert, Michigan, her whole life. She was born June 18th, 1963, which means many in the town knew her for all of her 34 years of life in this town. I'm sorry to tell you that this is not a case where I have a lot of information that could be gleaned about Deborah herself. I know that she had her young daughter Tasha, but I don't know if she had others. I heard a detective in one documentary I watched, which is linked in the show notes, mention that she had young children, so it leads me to believe that she may have more than one, but for sure I know she has Tasha, who was left without a mother after this day with no other information beyond that she was hit and that the person or persons did not stop and have not been caught. The case went unsolved and cold with no one in Covert talking, and it remained that way for 9 years. The case was reopened in September 2007 by the Michigan State Police with the help of Covert Township Police as part of a cold case team.
Love it.
Yes.
They get special grant money for these. Otherwise,
Yep.
they would never be able to afford or have the manpower to open cold cases.
No. Michigan State Police Detective Oppenheim and Detective Kyle Gorham and Covert Township Detective Jay Allen start working the cold case together. So that's different jurisdictions, Michigan State Police and Covert Township, 9 years after Deborah's death. They first start, you guys, at the forensic evidence. They're combing through it with a fine tooth. They start with the autopsy, looking for clues that perhaps the first time around was missed, okay? And they notice right away that there was a lot of bruising, especially to her face and body. Her body was described as being mangled. There were teeth missing and large contusions on her face. Her face was completely black and blue, with large portions on her face that were completely gouged away. Despite the obvious evidence that she had been struck by a vehicle in the torso, how did all of this happen to her face? And I want to just put a little statement in here that I didn't write into my notes, but I just want to say, as an investigator, sometimes you can be in the throes of an investigation and your mind is just making it sometimes being traumatized by what you're seeing in front of you, and it's making inferences. And because you're so close to the situation, that sometimes something looks obvious, right? Like it looks like she was hit in the road. And so that's what it's chalked up as because you're so close to it. And then years later, when others who don't have that perspective because they don't have the trauma, right, from looking at that information so narrow-mindedly, and that's not a criticism. That is truly just the reality of when you're in the throes of an investigation. It is easier because you are thrice removed even, right, from the situation. And so I'm thinking in the moment when they are seeing this body mangled in the road, they are thinking, of course, a vehicle can do all of this,
Sure.
right?
Depending on the size.
Yes.
And not to be graphic, but not just struck, but potentially dragged.
Yeah,
dragged
right.
under a
Dragged.
truck.
I keep
Yes.
thinking semi-truck.
Yeah.
Like they're going to jump to those conclusions when you see that significant amount of injury.
Yes, exactly. So I can see, I'm not placing criticism on the initial investigators. I think they're looking at this evidence of her being found in the middle of the road, and it's obvious she was struck in the chest by this vehicle, but just the trauma of it all and saying, yeah, I think a vehicle could have knocked her tooth out, could have left those contusions. And then 9 years later, when someone who is removed from being on scene.
Fresh eyes can work wonders.
Yep. So they're looking at this going, wait. If she was struck by a vehicle, because she was alive when the EMTs found her. So if she's struck by a vehicle and it caused all that damage to her face, would she be alive enough to speak and plead with them and say, please don't let me die? Or would it have been more instantaneous? So they're thinking, listen, we think there is way more to this than what was originally looked into. Their next step is to try to retrace Deborah's last 24 hours. So they start to talk to family and friends, of course. They learn that Deborah had been working on April 26th, 1998. She got off work at 7 p.m. and made plans to meet with her cousin Brenda. They went to South Haven, which is not far from Covert, to a bar. Deborah wanted to go to the Blue Star Lounge, where she knew that her ex-boyfriend, Ivory Shaver, would be. Deborah had a bone to pick with him over money, and Brenda honestly didn't want to participate. So about 10:45, they go their separate ways. And Deborah goes on to the Blue Star Lounge, which is a small after-hours bar that gets crowded in the evening hours. We have a local bar that this whole Blue Star Lounge, reminded me of. And so it's about 10:45 when she goes there, the last time Brenda sees her. Now, this bar by a local police officer was described as a powder keg at times.
Ready to blow.
Yep, with what could happen and take place there and had in the past. Ivory Shaver, and Deborah had been in an on-again, off-again troubled relationship for years. There was domestic violence, and he was no stranger to law enforcement. The Shaver family was a large and well-known family in the area, with many being very nice people, and just a couple of bad eggs that were described as being not as nice, with large criminal histories and a propensity for scaring people into submission. Investigators learn, as I had hinted at before, that just a few days before her death, Deb was actually assaulted by Ivory Shaver over money, which is why she was wanting to confront him on this night. Ivory was described as a cold stone man, and that is according to Deb's daughter. Detectives look at Ivory first as a person of interest, and he wasn't hard to find because when the case was reopened, he was in prison in Indiana serving time for a home invasion. He didn't give them much during the initial interview. He actually spoke of Deborah fondly and confirmed that their relationship had ended by this point. He was with a new woman named Chevalier Gill. And all I could think of was Pass the Chevalier, but it's not. It's Cavassier. Just so you know, that's what the song is. Chevalier, also known as Chevy. Did you just say syphilis?
Shabliss.
Oh,
Charlize.
Jason fancifies our drinks.
Chevalier Gill, and which actually I think is quite a beautiful name. But anyway, he's in a new relationship with Miss Gill, and he told them that he did see Deborah that night, but he left with Chevalier long before she was found in the road. He said he saw her around 11:30 p.m. So they go
Just put yourself there, buddy.
He did, but they go to the Blue Star Lounge owner, who was not willing to give any information.
Oh, well, you want a tight-lipped bar, guys.
That's right. He asked them how many people they had that night at the lounge, and his girlfriend, who was a part of the interview, immediately spoke up and was very quick to tell them it was 99, which is the capacity of their liquor license.
Oh. There you go.
That's
Probably
brilliant.
Right around 98, 99.
Yeah.
Should have shorted it a little bit more, buddy. Like 92. Don't make it obvious.
Through the grapevine, they get a list of the individuals that they knew were there throughout the night, but no one wanted to talk. It's a small town, and people knew things. 99% of the people they interviewed said they were in the bathroom. which if you know how small the bathroom is in that place, you know
Sorry,
that.
didn't see it in the bathroom.
Right.
Yep.
You mean the 2-staller that fits 4 people in
Oh,
it
it's
max?
not even a 2-staller.
The
Oh,
1-staller that fits 3 people in it
The maximum capacity
max?
of a bar is 99, but the bathroom's 100.
Yes. Yep.
Because half of the
Sorry,
men,
bathroom's 98.
the men piss in the alley behind the back.
Also true.
No. They determined that it could not have possibly have held the 350 people that they interviewed that said they were in the bathroom.
Yeah.
Now remember, this isn't. Don't
Bet
think
they all weighed under $1.50 too.
right. Don't think that all of these people were there at once. These are people that were seen there throughout the night. Okay, like throughout the day and things like that. So I don't want to make it sound like 350 people were there at the same time as Deborah. In this small bar, but they certainly were more than likely over capacity of their liquor license at the very least. And the fact of the matter is, a lot of these people had criminal records. A lot of them are anti-police. They're not willing to talk at all. They were in the bathroom. The vagueness only tells them that they're onto something. There's information here to be found. So detectives actually set up an anonymous tip line, and this really does help. They receive many tips that the police should talk with a man named Eric Hollis. He was a well-known dangerous drug dealer in the area, and there were so many people giving that tip that they just couldn't ignore its significance. And the tips were saying that he was at the Blue Star Lounge that evening and would know more information. So they contact him, and he actually does provide a written statement. He explains he was at the Blue Star Lounge that night. But it was prior to Deborah because he was creating his own alibi. He was married at the time and was planning to meet his girlfriend at the Blue Star Lounge. So the police then had to go in a roundabout way to discreetly verify with the girlfriend that this was indeed true. He was dropped off there. He had one drink and then he left with the girlfriend. He never crossed paths with Deborah, which makes the police wonder, why did this name come up so many times over and over in our tip line? It becomes obvious that the tipsters are attempting to thwart the investigation onto a well-known drug dealer in the area.
They literally planned and conspired to give inappropriate information to impede an investigation.
I have a pretty good idea what happened to Deborah.
Well, I bet you. Okay. Do you want him to tell you what his theory is at this point? I'm just thinking of all the things to charge all these people with who are impeding a police investigation and giving false information on, falsely reporting information on a felony.
I think she got the shit kicked out of her by about 20 people.
And then dumped
Yep.
out of a car, like a moving car that was heading down Blue Star Highway.
Yeah.
Okay.
And potentially something this drug dealer may or may not have more information or something. But
Or he wasn't there, but he's the bad guy.
But everyone knows him. Like, let's blame this idiot.
Right.
But
He's probably too high to remember.
This is starting to sound like mob mentality, that everyone has the same story.
All 300 people in the
we were in the
bathroom.
bathroom. We didn't see shit. And
Well-
then a dozen, 20 people, or however many people called the hotline and all said the same thing.
He does have more information for them. They ask him, do you know who did this? And no, Mr. Hollis was not willing to tell them who did it. But
Was he in the bathroom?
No, he wasn't. Remember, he didn't cross paths with Deb. He was boinking his girlfriend by 10:45 at night when she was there. And he admitted that, put a written statement down. He said, you can verify this with my girlfriend. It was corroborated. But he told them, talk to them bitches. He's saying,
What a lovely guy.
talk to the bitches that were at the bar that night.
South Haven.
Well, now they have.
South Haven is a touristy upscale town.
a
I mean, they
beautiful
have your
town.
townies.
The Blue Star.
So what I'm hearing so far is talk to them bitches is there's a group of women that didn't like her all together at the
Right.
bar. So your theory is okay.
It gives them direction. There were a number of women there that night. But in this,
Women or bitches?
well, in this area though, you guys,
Can't all be bitches.
not all of them. I'm lovely until crossed. Maybe we are all bitches. Anyway, in this area, the domestic violence is high. So you have to develop rapport before the woman is going to feel safe enough to talk. And it takes patience. Okay. Witnesses talked about a Letitia Holling. She was a friend of Chevalier Gill and was at the lounge that evening evening and partying with Gil. Letitia was one of the last people to leave the bar that night. They were able to talk with people who were in the car with Letitia Holling that night, and one of them was very emotional and tells the police Letitia Holling ran over Deborah Boothby. So now they think Letitia's involved, of course, and during the interview with Tisha, as she goes by, she does not admit to running Deborah over, but they offer her a polygraph and let her know that people think that she ran Deborah over. So they give her this polygraph, and they ask, did you hit Deborah Boothby when you left the Blue Star Lounge? And she said no. She failed the test. Now remember, it just shows deception, and it's not admissible. So they go back to her, and they really need to figure out where the deception really is in her story. They're coming at her strongly now because they know that she's not been honest with them. She breaks down crying. She's a single mom of small kids, and she says, I'm not saying anything. I have to think of the safety of my kids. So they know they have to build trust with her. Through 3 separate interviews, she starts to open up more. She witnessed an argument between Chevalier Gill and Deborah Boothby at the Blue Star Lounge. Deborah confronted Ivory Shaver. There was a drink thrown in his face by Deborah on Ivory over him being there with Chevy. Things got out of control. So out of control that the Blue Star Lounge actually closed early because of this fight between Ivory and Deborah. So they focus on interviews with women regarding this fight. And they found a witness that lived in the worst part of Kalamazoo, Michigan there is. They took her for a burger, and they flat out say, we know you've been a victim of domestic violence, and that this, what happened to Deborah, has almost been you before. If you have any information, we need to know. This witness broke down crying and described a second fight that took place in the parking lot of the Blue Star Lounge between Deborah and Ivory after it closed. She described it as looking like dogs fighting over a bone. That's how fierce it was. There was kicking, beating, stomping, and it was not just Ivory Shaver and Chevalier Gill. There were 2 others as well participating in the beating. One was Ivory's nephew, Scotty Shaver. He was a young kid, out of control, in and out of trouble with law enforcement for things like drugs, breaking and entering, and a local drug dealer, Ed Foster, a known associate with the Shaver family. Ed Foster ends up kicking her so hard, according to this witness, that she stops moving. The whole crowd that was watching, because many, remember the Blue Star Lounge closed early because of this fight, so many just watched the fight take place in the parking lot. The whole crowd thought she was dead. The witnesses all see this. She was dragged and then put in a car.
Pause. Mm-hmm. Just consider the fact now that not one of these people called for help.
They recognize the person beating this
Not
woman
one.
as a local drug dealer.
I don't.
So there's some.
I don't care.
No, I know.
I don't care. Every single one of you, I hope you never get a full night's sleep again. And I fucking mean it.
Yeah.
I know. And this is South Haven, Michigan, where there are some rough parts.
This is when you hope that all the things, the voodoo things that you believe in and the juju is true, because this is karmic. If there is a potential that anyone will be haunted, I honestly, I truly hope that none of you sleep well at night ever again. Sorry.
No,
that's how
I understand. I'm right there with you. There are a lot of people who knew things and never said things. I said that from the beginning. Yes. Here's the problem, though. So people see her dragged and put into a car. They all disperse from the parking lot because they know this is bad news. The police are going to be here anytime. That woman was unconscious. The vehicle that Deborah was placed in went south out of the parking lot of the bar. But the police know her body was found north. So now they need to talk to people who would have intimate knowledge of what happened after that vehicle left the Blue Star Lounge and headed south. The problem is, people are scared of the Shavers. People from the Shaver family were threatening witnesses that when they found out that they were interviewed by police. Because remember, they find out we reopened this case 9 years later. We reopen it. So now they're still at their games threatening people of what's going to happen to them if they talk to the police. The investigation leads them to a woman named Adrienne Burnett, who was dating Scotty Shaver at the time of the murder. Remember, Scotty Shaver is Ivory Shaver's nephew, young nephew. So she's dating Scotty at this time. When they tell her, we've reopened the Boothby case, she turns white as a ghost. She was going to school now, 9 years later. She's a mother now, and a good one, but they know that she knows something. She admitted to being at the lounge that night when you talk about karma. She was vague in her recollection. She didn't have much to do with the fight, just trying to distance herself from the situation. However, by the end of the 4-hour interview, she admits to driving over Deborah Boothby.
Really?
They asked her, please give us a timeline, and she agrees.
Was she already dead?
No, remember?
She wasn't dead when they found her.
Remember the EMTs? She was saying...
Oh, my God. Thank you.
I know. We've been on a whole
whirlwind.
whirlwind.
My brain just was already... I guess my brain was that they watched her get beat to death in the parking lot, even though I clearly heard you say she died in the ambulance. Yep. I apologize.
No, that's okay. I get it. This has been a journey. This is quite a story. Now, as a result of cooperating with the police, Adrienne receives threats from Scotty Shaver and Ed Foster. She told them exactly what had taken place, from the confrontation within the bar where Deborah threw a drink in Ivory Shaver's face to the absolute brutal beating that took place in the parking lot. From there, she said that she was waiting in a line of cars to leave the lounge parking lot when Scotty Shaver got into the front passenger seat of her car, which is her boyfriend, and told her to follow Chevalier's car, because that is the car that they put Deborah in after the beating, the beating in the parking lot. She is in Chevalier Gill's car. Adrienne complied with his command and turned left towards Covert. She followed Chevalier's car into a park about a mile from the lounge. The two cars drove through the park until they reached a turnaround, like a dead-end roundabout, a turnaround, near an old pump house. At that point, Scotty Shaver got out of Adrienne's car, and Ivory, Chevalier, and Ed Foster got out of Chevalier's car. Deb was pulled out of the car and dragged to a grassy area. She was conscious again and was screaming for help and begging for them to stop. And I should preface this, you guys, with much of this information that I'm telling you is straight from court records. Adrienne said at this point, Chevalier Gill choked Deborah Boothby while the men continued to beat her. Eventually, Deborah stopped moving, and Chevalier asked if Deborah was dead. Ivory said that they were going to take her back to the lounge, dump her on the side of the road, and run her over with the car so that it would appear that she was killed in a hit-and-run accident.
Now we have premeditation, a plan.
Ivory, Ed, and Chevalier got back into Chevalier's car, and Deborah was placed back in the back seat. Adrienne said she was numb at this point and scared to death of what would happen to her. Scotty Shaver got back into Adrienne's car and told her to follow Chevalier Gill's car, which Ivory Shaver was now driving. Adrienne said she followed Chevalier's car back toward the Blue Star Lounge, and that Scotty Shaver explained to her that their plan was to run Deborah over and make her death look like an accident. Adrienne said that Chevalier's car drove just north of the lounge, and that Ivory and Ed Foster got out of Chevalier's car and placed Deborah behind it. They put the car in reverse and ran over Deborah, and then rolled forward back over her again. Ivory was the driver. Scotty told Adrienne to drive up to the Blue Star Lounge parking lot, where he then sold drugs to Keith Owens, a bouncer at the lounge. After the drug transaction...
Gotta pay the bills.
Scotty, he's a multitasker, that Scotty. Scotty Shaver told Adrienne that she was going to leave this bar. You're going to run that bitch over and make sure she's dead this time. End quote. Adrian said that she told Scotty she didn't want to run Deborah over. And Scotty said, quote, "You're going to run her over or else I'm going to pull you out and you're going to end up just like her." End quote. So Adrian did what she was told. Deborah was still on the ground at this time, towards the side of the road, and her upper body in the lane of traffic, and her head was towards the center lane. Adrian said that she was driving 25 to 30 miles an hour when she ran over Deborah. After running Deborah over, she went back to her house with Scotty Shaver, who spent the night. Now, something that you should know, remember, there were witnesses that said that Miss Holling ran over Deborah, right?
Yes.
Well, Miss Holling also likely struck her without intention because she was following behind Adrian. She left the parking lot. Remember I mentioned that she was one of the last people to leave the Blue Star Lounge that night? She left the parking lot after Adrian, after that drug transaction, and she was following closely behind. So if Adrian ran over her, Miss Holling more than likely did too. And it's very possible that that is why she failed that portion of the polygraph. She likely knew she ran something over, perhaps got a good look at it, perhaps didn't.
Or she watched the fight happen and ran her over also, just to play devil's advocate.
Very possible, but she's never been charged.
No, it's possible also. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying there are two potentials here. You can say that's an accident, but that's a little hard to swallow.
But she also still didn't report it.
I don't know. I've never accidentally run over something in the road.
And then not reported it?
Well, like I've come across like we have deer in Michigan, next thing you know, around the corner, big dead bloated deer at night, right? Like able to swerve, whatever. I suppose it's possible it could happen. We have had cases where somebody has accidentally run over a person.
You ran over, I don't know how big Deborah was. Let's just say she was an average-sized person.
She was not a big girl.
And she weighed 125 pounds.
Yes.
That's not average, by the way. But okay.
No, but...
No, she was small. She was tiny.
I know, I'm saying. But again, if you run over a 130-pound person with your car, you're going to notice it's not a raccoon.
It is running over a doe.
Yes. Yeah. Or, I mean, I hit a 75-pound dog and it ripped the bumper off. Granted, it was moving and I was moving, but a dog, like a 70-pound dog, ripped the bumper off my car. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Asterisk, I didn't do that on purpose.
Of course not. Of
course. Horrible, tragic accident. It was in the country.
Right.
Dog ran out on the road.
Well, and I've hit multiple deer.
Oh yeah, I've hit several deer. I hit a turkey and a 25-pound turkey destroyed my Jeep.
I remember that.
Oh, pheasants! They fucked my grills up multiple times.
So I'm just saying, you notice.
You do.
But if she didn't notice before, again, I'm going to say it again for the people in the back. She noticed after. Mm-hmm. Not one fucking person got home and said, I got to call law enforcement. Mm-hmm. I can't deal with this shit. Like, I know what snitches get stitched. Well, dude, somebody died. You watch someone get
anonymously
murdered.
And be like, hey.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Sure can.
There's a dead body in the road. I watched it happen. Like, call it in.
These people beat the shit out of her in the parking lot.
But not just mob mentality, but just the fear because of the individuals involved. I do get that. And that there is potential risk of harm, right? Because the person who snitches is probably at risk. But 50 people, maybe, watch this happen?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And like you said, you can call it in anonymously.
Boggles my mind.
While another break comes for police in 2009 when a man named Adrian Travier, or Traver, I've heard it pronounced both ways. Anyway, Adrian was an inmate who was incarcerated with Ivory Shaver. He wrote a letter to the prosecutor indicating that Ivory confessed to the murder and stated that Scotty, Chevalier, and Ed Foster were also involved. Arrests were actually made 11 years after Deb's murder. Now remember, think about they reopened the case 9 years later, but it took a couple of years to get all these witnesses, get all these statements, get all this together. Now, this case was big in the small town and people were scared. The trials happened in 2010 and 2011. And police had to pick witnesses up and escort them to the trial, constantly reassuring them of their protection. No. That's how scared they are.
Okay, so maybe I feel a little bit bad about the statements that I made, but I really don't. They clearly needed some witness protection. And living in this town, that county, as small as it is, which I am familiar with, it would have been hard to provide some type of witness protection so that somebody really felt completely comfortable to get to and from court and to testify. So I'll have compassion.
Yeah. Now, Adrienne Burnett pleaded guilty to second-degree murder and perjury. Pursuant to the deal, she agreed to provide truthful testimony at each and every court proceeding regarding Deborah's murder. The plea deal also included a sentence agreement stating that she would be sentenced to 8 to 20 years imprisonment for each count, and that the sentences would run concurrently with the possibility of parole after 6.
Do you know what I don't like about what you just
hit
said?
the microphone.
No, it was my whole forehead. I unicorned the whole thing. They made a plea agreement with her.
They
plead
did.
guilty to perjury. Then you agree to testify honestly. But once you've been convicted of perjury, this is something that can
Credibility go out the window?
legally, yes, 100%, dear, legally be brought up at every single thing you ever have to swear to or testify to for the rest of your life because you've committed perjury. You've committed a crime against honesty. I don't know why they did that.
I'm just telling you what was in the appeals.
Hi, this person perjures themselves, but we're going to have them testify honestly.
Adrienne's the girlfriend that ran her over?
Yeah, Adrienne is Scotty Shaver's at the time girlfriend, who now is the one that confessed to police. She's got kids. She was in school. Like she gave them all of the information. And I will say the entire agreement was admitted as evidence and read into the record during the trials. Okay, so that the jury knew that her testimony was part of her own plea deal. Okay. Now, granted, she didn't participate in any of the beating, anything like that. She stands by her testimony that Scotty got into her car. She followed directions. She was scared.
I mean, she was forced.
And she was very young, by the way. She's early 20s. She's like 21 years old when this happened.
Is there any consideration that she was forced out of like threat of harm to commit a violent crime?
That can be mitigating, I think, very specifically for purposes of sentencing, but it doesn't negate the crime. You always have the option to say no, even if it means your own injury or death.
Ooh.
I'm sorry, it's true.
I know you're just giving us the facts.
I
but
am giving you the facts.
that
and it's
made
awful.
me uncomfortable.
If somebody, okay, let me put this hypothetical out there. If someone told you that they were going to shoot you if you didn't kill somebody in front of you, do you know what you would do? I'd die. I couldn't kill somebody in front of me. I couldn't do it.
Yeah, no.
An innocent human being in front of me, maybe you shouldn't answer that, but an innocent human in front of me with a gun in my head and they hand me a gun and say, shoot them, it's them or you, I'm gone.
I'm probably shooting the person who just put a gun in my hand.
Well, I'm going to attempt that, by the way, which will result in my untimely death.
There's some flaws in this example.
There are.
But you're right, understandably so.
I'm just saying, again, I'm not saying that those aren't mitigating circumstances and factors and that she wasn't under duress. And duress can be a potential defense here. So you have the potential defense.
Yes.
But I think that's unlikely. And then at sentencing, you have these mitigating factors because homicide cases are life or any term of years.
So are they going to say that her hitting her with a car is what killed her? Because the other people ran her over twice.
She wasn't dead. The EMTs. No.
I feel like her sentencing on her plea is extreme.
That's why it was second degree murder.
Yeah.
She got second degree murder.
Not premeditated.
Wait till you hear what the other ones.
Extreme sentencing.
What'd you think of manslaughter?
I just kicked the table.
Oh, you think the charge is right, but she should have been sentenced later?
Well, yeah. For her plea to help provide evidence to convict these 5 other people, she gets 8 to 20.
She got, just so you know, she got 20.
Right.
They sentenced her to 20.
Well, they gave her a sentence range, and then the judge in Michigan is who sentences
scored her.
Which sentencing guidelines determined she was at a 20-year.
I think that's it. I mean, she did something horrible. I'm not, I just think that's
I fully support my benchmate, and if I could have given her more, I would have.
I think you're forgetting. She didn't talk for 9 years. They were pleading for the public's help for 9 years. And she never once called in an anonymous tip to say, look into these 4 people. They know more. People know more.
She was afraid Crazy Scotty would kill her and her kids.
9 years later,
Wasn't
he in prison?
She didn't have kids at that time.
No.
She did not have children at that time. She had children once they came a knocking 9 years later.
Here's the best part about
was a good mom.
For jurors in Michigan, you don't make sentencing determinations here. The judge does. And we use sentencing guidelines. And if we feel like it's appropriate to exceed the guideline, then we can. And it does set you up for automatic grounds for appeal. But as long as you make a record, then it's up to the Court of Appeals. And I think good judges, do what's right in their opinion based off the information they have, knowing that they might get appealed on it later. So there was a sentencing agreement or a recommendation that she only get 8 to 15, 8 to 20.
8 to 20.
And she agreed to that.
And she got the 20.
And she got the 20 instead of the 8.
And I'll tell you that there, upon appeal, there was some information about how there was question of whether or not so they admit her into evidence, her plea deal, okay? But what wasn't admitted and then was kind of contested of whether or not it should have been admitted was the scoring. And they determined that doesn't mean a mistrial based on the appeal, because remember, on appeals they're going to pull at anything that they can, and so the scoring was not admitted, but she was scored the highest. She was scored at the highest.
She agreed to the sentencing range.
She did.
She agreed to the 8 to 20. If the judge would have given her 25 or more, then there would have been certainly automatic grounds, and you exceeded the agreement. Right. Actually, the whole agreement could have been, depending on whether it was a cob or a Killebrew, which is a whole different case to get into. But I'm just saying, again, she could have been charged with first-degree murder. Right. She took a plea to a second and agreed to that 8 to 20 because she knew if she got convicted of first, she was looking at life with no parole.
Exactly.
Can you give us a quick definition of second-degree murder?
So second-degree murder is the intentional taking of a life, but potentially without premeditation.
Right.
Okay, so
which does fit her. Okay, that does fit her,
right?
Yeah.
Because the others get premeditated murder.
Right.
Yeah,
because they absolutely did. Yeah.
But remember, too, she potentially qualified. She was appropriately charged with first degree because planning and premeditation does not require a lengthy amount of time. It could have actually been a matter of minutes, okay? But because duress, I think, was part of hers, I think a second-degree plea offer was actually really appropriate, in my opinion, on the part of the prosecutor's office. And frankly, I think that her probably appointed defense counsel appropriately advised her to take that plea. I really don't think anybody did anything wrong there in terms of her and how she was pled out and or how she was sentenced. They all sound right to me.
Okay. Well, I've got more for us.
Oh, great.
Okay. You need to know that Ivory Schaefer, Scotty Schaefer, and Chevalier Gill were all tried together, and so was Ed Foster. But Scotty, Ivory, and Chevy had one jury, and Ed Foster had another separate jury.
Can you remind me who Foster is?
So they weren't tried together.
He was, Ed Foster was a known associate with the Shaver family. He's the local drug dealer. He is the one that kicked her in the head so hard that she became unconscious in the parking lot.
Well, if he had a separate jury, they clearly weren't tried together.
Well, what's interesting is all of the appeals say all 4 of the defendants were tried together with Ed Foster having a separate jury.
That's not a thing. I don't know what they're saying.
That was the exact statement in the appeals.
I don't think.
I promise you, it's word for word. And I was going to ask you about it, about what that means.
You can't
that's
try
what I thought
together with different juries.
That's what I thought too.
Unless they are insinuating that there was a courtroom big enough that they had 2 12-person jurors and one was like, no, I only want you to pay attention to Ed, guys.
No.
Not going to happen.
No, hold on.
There's no way.
I have more. But I agree, but that is I'm just telling you that is exactly how it was stated in the appeals.
Maybe they were quote unquote tried together, but it was a bifurcated trial.
And they were, absolutely same charges. 100% all of them the same charges too. But I quoted, because I wanted to ask you about it, because I'm like, I've never heard of this before. That's what the appeals said. So
if that's a thing, me as a baby judge has never experienced that.
Me as a baby judge. All right. During the trial, Chevalier Gill took the stand, but only testified for, her, Scotty, and Ivory's trial. She did not testify in front of Ed Foster's jury. She told
Those
her
are different trials.
I am with you. I agree. This is the information that I found as it was written, my friend.
Why we don't trust the media, guys.
No, this was from the appeals. This wasn't the media. I'm taking this straight to the Court of Appeals.
Retract my statement.
So I am telling you. I know you so well.
They were heard together on appeal, so they're being heard together at that point in time, but they weren't tried together.
I promise you, I've never misquote.
I know that about you.
So here's the thing. She in their trials, and I preferably would rather move through this case saying that her, Scotty, and Ed were all tried together. Or excuse me, no, Ivory, Scotty, and Chevy were all tried together, and Ed was tried separately. I would like to say that because I truly believe, I'm with you. I believe that is exactly how that happened. They had separate juries. It's all over in all of the court documents that they had separate juries. Okay. So anyway.
I was going to start looking this up. Okay, I'll let it go.
She said that she did see Deborah Boothby talking to Ivory at the club. She didn't remember seeing Ed Foster, Adrian Burnett, or Scotty Shaver that night. She also testified that the club closed, so she and Ivory left in her car and went home. She denied that Deborah Boothby was ever in her car, that she ever touched Deborah Boothby, or that she ever planned with anyone to run over Deborah Boothby or kidnap her. Scotty and Ivory did not take the stand. The jury for Chevy, Scotty, and Ivory deliberated for 7 days and were hung. The court declared a mistrial. I see Jason's face right now.
You have to. If they didn't come up with a guilty or not guilty, then it's a mistrial, and you get to try the whole effing thing again.
In the meantime, a trial was held for Ed Foster. Adrian Burnett delivered her testimony, and her plea deal was read at Ed Foster's trial. Keith Nickerson also testified for the prosecution. He shared a cell with Ed Foster at the Van Buren County Jail, where Nickerson awaited sentencing in federal court for a bank robbery conviction. Nickerson testified that Ed Foster told him that he had kicked Deborah Boothby in the head in the parking lot outside of the Blue Star Lounge, and he was in one of the vehicles that ran over Deborah Boothby, which matches the testimony of Adrian.
He was the passenger, right?
He was, yeah, because Ivory Shaver was driving it at that time. Nickerson testified that in April 2010, he was sentenced on a federal bank robbery charge to 10 years to 8 months, and that he is currently serving that sentence. He testified that the prosecutor in the case, in Ed Foster's case, did not indicate that he would do anything for him in regard to the cases that he had pending. So, in other words,
nothing out of this.
He didn't. He got nothing out of testifying at Ed Foster.
To lie.
Right.
None that we can tell.
He also is not the only jailhouse informant to testify. Michael Smith was a paralegal and running a jail law library at the Marion County Jail in Indianapolis.
He was an inmate.
He was.
That decided he was a paralegal or got a certification.
No, he got his certification
while he was in jail. And
they have libraries?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Some of them.
And he was given permission to run the jail library. Mm-hmm.
A paralegal.
At the Marion County Jail, he was a certified paralegal.
It doesn't matter.
Where he was housed on the same block as Ed Foster. Michael Smith has convictions of forgery, theft, and fraud. He testified.
So he's super honest.
Yeah.
Also, he's an incredible paralegal. Clearly can keep himself out of trouble.
Probably get into politics.
Great arguments.
Well, here's the thing.
Future senator.
Right, exactly.
Ed Foster asked him for representation, for advice, and explained the nature and details of the case to him.
This is where I was going with my sarcastic comments about paralegals who cannot give legal advice in the state of Michigan. It's illegal.
He said that Ed Foster explained that what his role was and how he participated. They were at the bar. There was a white female by the name of Deborah K. Boothby who had come into the lounge, and she had begun using racial slurs towards Ivory Shaver, and that Ed Foster then bragged about how himself and other accomplices had beat the victim numerous times with strikes and punches, and how they had taken her and placed her in a vehicle, drove from the Blue Star Lounge to a location which was a dead end behind the bar, and how they ran over her. 2 Indiana state troopers also took the stand. They stated that when they arrested Foster, that he asked, quote, "Can a person be charged with murder if he was only there when the person who committed the murder?"
You know who you shouldn't ask for legal advice from?
Troopers.
Indiana State police officers.
When one of the troopers answered that someone could be charged as an accomplice to the murder in that scenario, Foster asked if it would be true if the vehicle was involved. In addition, Ed Foster
This guy's pretty smart, huh?
Well, he testified on his own behalf. He stated that he and Scotty Shaver were enemies and that there was a big rift in general among people from South Haven, like the Shavers, and people from Covert, like Foster.
Oh, great. It's like
it's the Bloods and the Crips. He stated that he would never have I know. He stated he never would have done anything to help Scotty Shaver out. And while Foster admitted that he was at the Blue Star Lounge on the night in question, he claimed to not have any contact with Ivory, Scotty, or Gil that night in the parking lot, meaning Chevalier. In the parking lot, he said that he saw Deborah Boothby and stated that women were fighting. He said he left by himself without getting involved in the fight.
Oh, those catty ladies.
Isn't that interesting? He left by himself, so there's no one to corroborate your alibi.
Mm-hmm.
There were many other witnesses that testified contradicting Ed Foster's testimony.
Eddie doesn't ever go home alone.
Never. Ed Foster's jury found him guilty of second-degree murder and first-degree felony murder. At sentencing, the second-degree murder conviction was vacated, and Ed Foster was only sentenced for first-degree felony murder.
This is brilliant. This is appropriate criminal law right here, because when a murder occurs in the commission of your felony, for example, assault with intent to do great bodily harm, less than murder, any type of those aggressive assaultive behaviors, or assault with a motor vehicle, or conspiracies to commit same, kidnapping because she didn't consent to be moved to that spot out behind the bar, for example.
She did not.
Those are all perfect examples of why you would have the first degree felony murder conviction instead. And it makes sense as to why you'd vacate the second. Only one death occurred, and they were convicted of 2. He was convicted of 2 homicides at that point in time. So that doesn't quite make sense pursuant to Michigan law.
Well, he did receive life without the possibility of parole.
Also a great. I don't know who the sentencing judge was, but good job, benchmate. I think that's appropriate.
For sure. Now the other 3 are tried again in 2011.
Because of the mistrial.
Because of the mistrial. Adrian testifies again as part of her plea deal, and it was admitted as evidence. The jury hears from Mr. Travier, who was incarcerated in Indiana with Ivory when Deb's case was reopened. He testified that he and Ivory walked almost every day together and that they often talked about parole. He testified that Ivory expressed concern about whether his parole decision was being delayed because of the reopening of the investigation, which is absolutely why it was being denied at the time, due to the reopening, because once they learned that Ivory was Deborah's ex, on again, off again, and he was up for parole in Indiana, they contacted the parole board, letting them know that he was a risk to the public.
Right.
Now, some notable things happened during the second trial, Megan, and Jason. I mean, I know you're here too, but this will really interest Megan, and that I found in subsequent denied appeals. One of the jurors was excused because while outside smoking with a few other jurors, she made a ridiculous comment of something of the effect of, "I'm surprised they aren't all in prison already," or a statement close to that indicating that she believed that they were guilty before the trial was even done.
Yeah, that's not good.
Who made that statement?
A juror.
Oh.
Yeah, because we give specific instructions,
Yes.
and I ask them if they are able to keep an open mind until the close of the actual evidence in the case. And you can start to form an opinion pretty early on, but you are instructed also to not discuss that or state your opinion until after I've sent you back to deliberate. So I think it's appropriate that she was excused. And also, I'm not mad at her. Like, I think that that's
Right.
some people aren't going to be able to follow my instructions, which is usually why you have an alternative. Again, if I was the judge, I'd be like a little pissed, but at the same time would be like, you're out of here.
I think the judge handled this so well because, first of all, it was a juror that heard it, that reported it.
Yes, which we instruct them to do.
Right. And it was decided by all parties that the juror would be dismissed, and a mistrial, of course, was asked for by the defense. But it was denied by the judge because the jurors who heard it were the ones that reported it, and they interviewed them, and they all agreed that they recognized that was inappropriate, and they stated that they could provide a fair opinion and not base their opinion on the juror who was dismissed.
Of course. I think that's fair. And you ask them when you select them, can you,
Yes.
if you were the defendant, would you give an appropriate and fair jury? Are you biased at all by the comment that particular juror made? No, I'm not. I haven't made my decision up because I haven't heard the evidence. I think a judge would allow them to continue. Is there potential grounds for this to be brought up in appeal? Betcha it was.
It was in every single one of the appeals, which of course they all document that the appeals have been denied because of the way that the trial court handled it by stating they interviewed each of the jurors independently.
Agreed.
First of all, the jurors who heard it reported it. So that right there tells you that they were following the rules, that they recognized that it was wrong. They all agreed that their opinions were not going to be based on the opinion of that juror. And it was a small portion. It was like 3 or 5 of them that had heard it. The rest of the jury had not heard that comment at all because they weren't smokers. It was only the jurors that were out there smoking.
And the judge determined that they weren't tainted in terms of what it was that they heard. On the other hand, I also don't have a problem with defense appellate attorneys appealing and using that as a basis. Are they going to win? Probably not, because I think that the lower court judge did a good job at mitigating that and making sure that it was a fair and impartial trial. But it's not. Again, I'm never mad when there's an appeal in these type of cases. It's expected.
There's going to be, for sure.
It's expected.
Another issue that comes up during the appeal was that during Adrian's testimony, she misspoke when she was asked a question, and MSP Detective Oppenheimer was sitting at the prosecutor's table and actually mouthed and started to say the word no and quickly visibly covered her own mouth. And so it was discussed in private with the judge and the attorneys about what happened. Many of the attorneys actually hadn't heard it even happen, but some of them did. And so these points had been raised on appeal, and the verdicts, though, however, have been upheld. Like, they didn't feel that her saying no, because she really did misspoke and she corrected herself, but she interjected, right, as the detective on the case. So the jury of 4 women and 8 men deliberated for less than 7 hours before coming up with a verdict. The 3 defendants, Scotty Shaver, who was 37 at that time, his uncle, Ivory Shaver, 49 at the time, and Chevalier Gill, 34 at the time. Remember, this is 11 years later after the murder. All of South Haven were convicted of first-degree felony murder, which carries a mandatory penalty of life in prison without the possibility of parole. The 2 Shaver men, Ivory and Scotty, were also convicted of first-degree premeditated murder, where Chevalier Gill was also convicted of second-degree murder. Testimony from eyewitnesses is what helped the most here because of how close the testimonies were to one another. And now, I do want to tell you that Deb's now adult daughter, Tasha Hickman, is a dispatcher for 911.
What?
Mm-hmm. She now helps others during distress calls because of what happened to her mama.
I like that.
Me too.
I really do.
Me too.
Also, really interesting way to show that you have a huge trauma, and this is how you're going to. But I love it. I think that that's healthy for people who've experienced that level of trauma.
11 years for justice to come to the people that murdered her mother.
What a cluster.
Right?
That whole case.
Right?
Good job to the MSP and
and Covert Township Police
on their collaboration on that cold case. Like, really good job.
Yes, I agree. And thank you, Davida, for this suggestion.
Seriously.
Who, by the way, said, I bet people do this to you all the time, and no offense at all if you don't want to cover this.
I don't know, Davida, but this is someone
really
you both know.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, yes.
She's
We love her.
Yeah.
Well, tell her I incredibly
She listens.
approve
She's
it.
a listener.
Oh, dude, I have very specific opinions. I could do a whole episode just on my opinions on this case.
Sure.
But alas, I don't
Great
do that
case.
all the time
Right.
for many, many reasons.
Yep.
Are we going to bathe?
We are.
We're going to bathe together?
Let's do some.
Who's this lovely woman that you have?
I just had flashbacks to Weird Science. We're gonna shower together.
Let's get it. I have a couple of brain baths for small. That's why there's a couple of them.
Okay.
Do you see her lovely mugshot?
Yeah, she's a peach.
Yeah,
She looks like
just
a
looks
disgruntled teenager.
she does.
One that doesn't listen when you ask
she
him to
could
do
go
shit.
golf real quick.
She's a Florida woman.
Oh, there
never
you
mind.
go.
Okay,
Never
here's-
say no more.
And this is simply a tweet that someone replied to. Florida woman kidnaps scientist to make her cat immortal.
Oh.
The retweet says, I'm not saying she's right, but I get it.
She kidnapped a scientist. Her cat was sick.
To
And
make
that
her
is-
she
cat
had
immortal.
Yep.
She had a break.
Yep, that's her
She
mugshot.
needed a veterinarian or somebody to make her cat immortal.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I feel like this is
Did you
watch
think this was
Ghostbusters
Doctor Strange?
instead.
Like what was
Maybe,
I mean,
maybe.
drugs might have been involved.
again?
Oh,
Start the
I don't
conversation
know.
with Florida woman.
Right. I told
I bet
you
it
people,
wasn't weed.
Florida
Yeah.
woman. And then I love this. This is on a little bench. And actually, guys, this is an advance directive to you guys.
Oh,
okay?
God.
An advance
You have
directive.
to put those in writing.
I know. It says, for Barbara. It's on a bench. It is a, oh my gosh, a plaque that's sitting on a bench. For Barbara, who was awful when hungry, but otherwise pretty solid.
Oh my God.
Guys, that, absolutely. That is me.
Do you want that on your tombstone?
No.
Yeah, or something like eats 3 dinners
Right.
to keep her from being hangry.
Here lies Charnell. That bitch could eat.
That bitch could eat. That's right.
That's fantastic. I was looking.
Oh,
Oh, never mind. I was like, I know I ran across something while we're talking about funny things that were posted, but I just realized that I can't say that on a general audience.
Oh,
episode.
okay, wonderful. Well, with that, thank you again for this this case suggestion, and may Deborah rest in peace. And we hope that the rest of the living will keep it curious.
And keep listening.
Until next time.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.